We have Vivek Bhatt. He is IT Kanpur alum. He is PhD from Cornell University. He is CTO at GE Healthcare, and he has been with the company for over 20 years. He leads the clinical care solution uh, with products that leverage today's technologies, AI, ML. He's also involved in Edison Developer Program that enables startups to build advanced application and drive innovation in healthcare. There's a lot to share from Vivek, so I'll hand it to you, Vivek, now.
Okay. Great. Nidhi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you
Okay,
well.
perfect. So look, already introduced me. I've been with GE Healthcare for 25 years, and been in engineering, product management, sourcing, site leadership, a lot of different functions, and that's been really, very awesome journey. And to me, I always thought that I was fortunate until COVID hit, and there is a lot of stuff that we have done in GE Healthcare that relates to COVID, all the way from ventilators, anesthesia, ultrasound, look at patient monitoring. How do you have command centers where you're managing what's happening to patients? Virtual solutions to manage ICUs remotely, ECGs. There's a lot of areas that touched us, and I really find myself, to be very fortunate that I got a chance to actually look at a lot of these different areas, just being part of the portfolio. So look, what I want to do is maybe share one journey, right? There's a lot of different things that happen, but just share one journey, and which is going to be about the ventilators. Look, today as we sit, right, we are, it's in the past, it's like 6 months ago, and so on and so forth. But put yourself back in the March timeframe, and actually, when this started, I remember I was at Arab Health sometime at the end of January. And everybody at that show from China was wearing a mask, and we had just learned that there's going to be this major restriction of movement within China. And my first reaction, and right after that, we had a staff meeting, and we're talking about stuff, and my first reaction was, I said, guys, this is going to create a huge supply chain disruption because China is shut down. We have all the parts, all the material that comes from there. We are not going to get it, and everything's going to come to a stop. Now, at the same time, so this was end of January, and the suppliers were not up and going until third week in March. I mean, in many cases, that's what happened. And at the same time, COVID moved from China to Europe, to the US, and so with that background, these were the headlines at that time where people were extrapolating, right? Talking about 2.4 million people to 21 million people who may require hospitalization, and we had only 925,000 beds. That's just the US. We're getting calls from pretty much every country saying, we don't know what the heck's going to happen here, and we need your help, right? And the reason they were coming to us is whether and remember, these were the days where ventilators were like front and center in the news. And I just Governor Cuomo in New York, where he was saying, look, I need 30,000 ventilators in 2 weeks. And just to give you a sense, the production of ventilators is somewhere about, I don't know, like 2,000 to 2,500 ventilators a quarter. Is how some of these, that's how much ventilators are produced, right? So imagine a supply chain, imagine a product where people are saying, look, just in New York, I need 30,000 of these. And you have 2,500 ventilators you're making every quarter. And oh, by the way, supply chain shut down, right? Because China is nobody's working there. And then, they were people were going crazy, with them saying, look, we're just going to go seize ventilators, right? I mean, this is going to be a national emergency. So that's kind of the context of what was happening back then. And I just, this is March 20th. I just kind of pulled up my calendar, and I'm going to talk about the GE Healthcare Ford partnership that we formed a little bit. And you can see, I mean, my whole day used to be about how can we respond, right? Whether it's how do you clean the machines that we have. It's basic questions like that. People were scared about, look, I mean, it's spreading so badly, right? How do you clean the machines? What do you do about ventilators? That was what was going on. So the first meeting that we had with Ford was on March 20. And you might be wondering, like, why were we talking to Ford? And the only way, look, medical industry is not used to making things in large quantities. It's not assembly line kind of production. And Ford is very good at it. And so before it had become like, the center of the news, and you can see, I just put, a tweet from Donald Trump, where he was saying, hey, GM and Ford start, get on it, make this right away. And this was March 27th. So even before it had become a little bit of a political thing, Ford had reached out and said, look, we don't know anything about ventilators. You guys know, what it is, and you guys know the technology. Tell us how we can help you really scale up production. And so the way we looked at it was, look, yes, we had that background. What Ford brought was mass manufacturing. How do you manage a supply chain, and how do you actually, make things, at a much larger scale? So it was very clear as to who would be doing what. And then, this is just a picture that I brought. I mean, Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, who was kind of like founder of GE in a sense. I mean, they were very good friends back in the day. So we kind of put this picture together and said, look, we are putting the band together again, right? We're going to go and respond to this emergency. And by March 30th, so never talked to Ford before. In a period of 10 days, we kind of said, look, let's figure out a plan to make 50,000 of these in the next 100 days. And if you just imagine setting up a whole supply chain and trying to figure out how do you do it, and part of it was, we weren't sure if these ventilators are going to be used only in the US, if they're going to be used outside the US. We were not sure if every place is going to have electricity. You could not be guaranteed about that. We had to choose a design that you could actually produce and mass produce. We had to look at what kind of parts were even available. So trying to do all that in 10 days, and just to give you guys a sense of scale, usually when you think of a ventilator and you want to bring it to production, it's about a 2.5-year process. So a 2.5-year process, we're trying to like squeeze down to 10 days, saying, look, let's put it all together and, let's go figure out. So it was, a huge amount of hard work and passion. And, people were, they were living in the office. I mean, people were sleeping on tables so that, they would get like 5 hours of sleep and wake up and get back right to work. I mean, that's the kind of effort people were putting in. And then ultimately, we went back to the government and said, look, yeah, we can make 50,000 ventilators. They gave us the order. And, we basically started, by May 12th. And, that was actually the day when Blue Angels, for those of you who are, of course, most of the folks are in the US here. I mean, they had a flyby the Rossonville plant where Ford was actually making those, and this is, again, the point here is when tough times come, when human beings and, when we are faced with a challenge, it was really heartening to see how people came together. Whatever the political beliefs, whatever they thought, these were people, I remember going to the plant, and some of them were wearing MAGA hats, right, and some of them were union people, right, who were completely anti-Trump, but everybody was tied with this one goal of helping the country, helping people, and it really didn't matter. I mean, politics was completely on the side. People were scared. I mean, there were people who said, "Look, we don't know if by coming in and working, and I might catch this thing, and I might actually." But they said, look, we are here. We had people who drove all the way from Salt Lake City, field engineers who said, look, we drove personally, and all we are here to do is be at this plant so that I can make ventilators to help my fellow humans. And then, and then this is Donald Trump actually, he did end up visiting. And actually, it's just a little story there. You saw that's actually a picture that I took personally, standing right there next to that blue car. And so he came in without a mask, and he saw everybody was wearing a mask. And then he said, you guys want me to wear one? And so we said, yeah, we got some masks. He said, no, don't worry, I have a mask in my limo, right? So he ran back. He actually personally went back to his limo, brought the mask, wore it. And then it's actually interesting. This was the first time anybody had sort of seen him in a mask. And I texted it to my family. And then about 2 hours later, they released the picture with him saying, I have a mask, I wear it, but I'm not going to let the media see me with this. So a lot of like politics on all that side, but these are like just a little bit of an anecdote here. But ultimately, we ended up, the design that we had chosen at the end of the day. I mean, we had taken the design from a small company and modified it for mass scale production. They were doing at the rate at which this design was made for, it would have taken 100 years. Actually, that was the current rate that it was being produced. And we tried to do that in 100 days. And yeah, we didn't exactly hit 100, we probably hit 110. So that's kind of a little bit of a story. And then look, I'm just going to stop on this page. For another day, I know, Patty talked a little bit about telehealth, a very similar story, right? We have this, this product called Mural, which helps you interact, and not just audio video. This is like real-time interaction with the patient, with their vitals, with all the different monitoring, pieces that you're doing, managing the ward. It's an integrated product. And this was at an on-prem level because that's what customers wanted. And knowing that this is going to cause a lot of disruption in terms of having skill, capacity available, in not exposing nurses to patients unless you absolutely have to. How do you bring some of these tele capabilities on? And we were able to actually move, we partnered with Microsoft and said, look, how do you make it available at scale? And it took us 4 days to a POC and 3 weeks to full release of a product like this, which was actually, again, as I said, I mean, these are, tough times. These are unprecedented times, and really the amount of effort people put in, and not just GE Healthcare, but everybody, whether it's our partners, whether it's the healthcare providers. It was just amazing. And the only thing I can say is, like, being an engineer, you always make things, but it is times like that really get you excited about the purpose of what we are really here for. So that's kind of a little bit of story of what we did. There's a lot more to be talked about, but maybe that's for another day.
Thank you so much, Vivek, for sharing a lot of details and stories as well. I hope Mr. President heals well. It's a difficult time for us as a country and as a global economy as well. So I'll shift conversation a little bit to technical part. I know this last slide is a very, very good example for that. I know GE has a wonderful product line. For example, you have patient scanning, you have AI assisted ultrasound, you have products that are enabling help with the COVID situation with the contactless technology as well. So on that front, how do you see, do these products have to be customized by geography or certain use cases? Is that a concern, or how do you handle that?
So the way we think about this is, human beings are pretty much the same across the globe, right? So what the complication comes from how the systems are set up, right? So when you talk about devices, whether it's ultrasound devices, monitors, anesthesia machines, ventilators, those products, they pretty much apply all over the place, right? I mean, it's exactly the same product. Mm-hmm. When you take a look at something like this, about 90% does not need to be customized, because you're talking about real, like, giving care to the patient, right? So how do you view the patient's vitals? What do the vitals mean when a combination of different signals triggers an alarm? Whether you're in the US or whether you're in India or China, I mean, those signals are the same, right? So that part stays the same. What changes is the workflow. How do you take care of the patient? How do you integrate with the EMRs, or how do you interface with the IT systems? Or maybe there isn't an IT system, right? So the workflow differences are where the customization comes. Mm-hmm. And so the way we've really architected it is, keep the core devices consistent, mm-hmm. keep the core information systems, the products like Mural consistent, and then what you do is you customize at the workflow level. And how do you separate out the technology into those stacks so that you minimize the amount of changes you have to make?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you, Vivek. I'll take one more question. Oh, there are a lot of amazing questions. It's difficult to make a pick. Okay, I'll take a question from Amit Gupta, his president. We still have significant shortage of PPE with healthcare workers reusing PPE even today. Any
Mhm.
insight on why this is and how this can be addressed?
So look, I mean, I will not claim to be an expert on PPE by any means, right? So really there is a couple of things. So as the COVID cases started to go down and as hospitalizations, for a while, it was all on a downtrend, right? And then now it is starting to pick up back again. A lot of the shortage usually is based on two things. Are we producing enough? And is that keeping up with the demand? So our demand is going up. And for a while, I think people had kind of said, like, yeah, it's all going to be fine, right? So the fact that we did not look at the demand the right way, so that's number one, right? I mean, the anticipation of the demand.
Mhm.
So that is one reason why you start to see shortages.
Mhm.
The other piece is when you think about PPE, it's not like I have a glove and I can keep using it, right? So every time a nurse goes into a ICU, when they come out, they have to kind of change the whole PPE all over again. I mean, that's the normal way you would do it, right? So what ends up happening is every time you don't have a technology or a capability of handling things remotely, you are sending a nurse in to say, is the ventilator okay? Is the monitor in the right place? So the more interactions you have, you multiply the amount of PPE needed by that. So with the trend going up in the infections and hospitalizations, with not having the right digital technologies where a remote or a non-touch piece is as easily available, those are the dynamics that are starting to really impact it. I don't think it's not the supply chain any longer. I think the supply chain is a lot more stable now, but it's those two factors that are really creating the issue.
We are short on time, but I really want to take this question live with you, Vivek. Given your long background in medical questions, would you have any ideas that Bay Area aspiring entrepreneurs can implement? Something that would be easier for a startup to implement versus a large organization like GE.
So look, I heard Patty talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, the and having been in healthcare, the biggest piece is the initial idea, especially if you're thinking about digital or software or IT technology. It is never about the technology in the healthcare space, right? What I mean by that is writing the code, right, doing the AI ML, not a big deal. That can be done. The problem is, how do you take it to an industry which is used to a very slow pace of change? Number one. And number two is a digital solution by itself does not solve anything. It
Mhm.
is the ecosystem, the whole workflow, the enterprise, how things are happening,
Mhm.
right? So the only advice I would have is I know it has to be a partnership between the big enterprise kind of players and people with new ideas, because to scale it you're going to need enterprise level deployment. Just having a great idea is not going to get us there, and for the big enterprise players they're not going to come up with all the ideas. So I
Mhm.
think it's truly about that partnership
Mhm.
and to find who are the right players who have the platform that can actually help you scale,
Mhm.
and finding that and then saying which problems need to be solved. I think that's how I would advise people to think about
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vivek. So I'm pretty sure there are a lot of questions for Vivek. So please uh, keep them coming. We'll get back to you and we'll direct those questions to Vivek as possible. Thank you so much, Vivek. That was
it. Thank you.
amazing. Great to speak with you.